Sunday morning, the 12th of January 2020. Another sleepless night. And this upload is to discuss matters that I've been skimming around in my previous uploads that have caused a serious issue for me. The issue being matrimony. Every woman, I think, when they get married and have a child or family, always anticipate the most positive future. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way. And in my circumstances, it hasn't worked positively. When I got married, I was in a position to support my former spouse in recovery and in other ways that benefited and progressed his developments. As a woman that is currently deserted, I feel obligated to share with other women my experiences of matrimony and desertion. The issues I've discussed already have been around the matters of domestic violence and a little bit about addiction, a little bit about everything, medical negligence, etc. This upload is for women that, women's aid, women's groups, and the important thing that I want to express in this upload, as carefully and cautiously as I could possibly express it, especially considering the circumstances of the vendetta occurring, would be around the safety of vulnerable women that have been deserted by their spouse. My marriage was for a short period. We were both, prepared for the future, as we thought. I was proposed to on New Year's Eve, 2014. We were married in March. By November 2017, I had to walk away after attempting to make an effort of recovering from an incident of desertion. It was physical desertion at first, and then it was emotional desertion, and very serious. There were very serious circumstances involved that I can't discuss in this upload, but for women that have read Eat, Pray, Love, this upload is reminiscent of that lady's experience that she shared in her publication. So basically, this matter has been absolutely devastating, as it would be for any woman. When a woman expects to have a family, you expect the positive, and you don't expect to be so horrendously betrayed and cheated and lied to. Worst of all, you don't expect a collective effort by other individuals in society to facilitate the dismantling of a family unit, and that is what has happened. So basically, this situation that I'm experiencing has been occurring mainly since 2017. the experiences I've had in the past 4 years, most married couples wouldn't have in 50 years or in 20 years. Um, I had perfect health before my marriage, but due to marrying an agrarian, I endured many hours of hard labour that really affected my physical well-being. Um, when I was working, I put a lot of pressure on my body and structure, and at the moment, as I've expressed in my other uploads, I have what I can only describe as symptoms of chronic fibromyalgia. I've been to my doctor on 2 occasions regarding this medical issue, and the other issues that haven't been tended to, and I've not received the medical care. The other issue that I had shared about in yesterday's upload about unlawful detainments that I have never experienced, only since being married, is another aspect of this vendetta that has occurred during this desertion that's occurring in society due to hate crime in Tralee and due to avarice of individuals that have no regard for family, or for women, obviously, with regard to me anyway, especially. Such is the nature of hate crime. Also, since 2015, as I've said, I've experienced very serious spiritual violations, um, which has, I've said, explained, not only damaged my physical body, but also my light body. The other aspect of all of this is the issue of homelessness. Prior to being married, I lived in my family home happily and contentedly, worked away, lived a fulfilling, physical, active life, productive life, and the saddening issue of all of this is that my marriage has destroyed me. It's very sad for any woman in my circumstances or in any circumstances to have this occurring. For a woman that married with the best of intentions and that has been so brutally treated and mistreated and lied about and defamed, it's absolutely embarrassing. The vendetta involved in this situation has not just included defamation and desertion and financial abuse. It's also involved the other things like betrayal and cheating and lying, etc. But even more so, there's been the falsification of information. Not so much just the defamation, but falsification of information and misrepresentations of me and my role. As well as that, there's been the issue of identity theft. There have been so many wrongdoings perpetrated since 2015 that haven't just involved the religious violations or what, with regard to, faith and whatnot. There's been the medical violations, the mental health claims, so much more serious stuff that I wouldn't be at liberty to speak about on these uploads. But for anyone experiencing anything like that lady in Eat, Pray and Love, my circumstances are a little bit more despairing. I'm currently in county council accommodation. As I've said, I'm a deserted wife, unsupported, and as I've said, my marriage has damaged me very severely, and it has caused me very serious hindrances and a lot of hurt. Um, the people involved in damaging my role as a mother and wife, that have already damaged my role as a teacher, and that have, you know, done me very serious wrongdoings, and that have exploited um, their gains from me in this vendetta, have no idea, no concept, no conscience, and no code of ethics or principles in the damage done to me as a mother, deserted wife, and teacher. Um, the issue that most women, when deserted, um, that are confronted with, is the vulnerability of homelessness. And sometimes that's not an intentional byproduct of separations or desertions or whatnot, or family breakdown or whatever, but homelessness is sometimes an intentional um, tactic in circumstances such as this. As I've said, there's been a gradual dismantling of my hierarchy of needs. My needs and requirements, medical, nutrition, financial, shelter, all those kind of basic needs have been intentionally disrespected and disregarded due to hate crime and due to other people's greed. And this situation that I'm being threatened with due to hate crime is very serious, and the guards still have not acknowledged it. On one occasion, before, during, and after my pregnancy in 2015, the local women's shelter that I had to seek shelter from due to the violence I was experiencing, um, intentionally rejected to accommodate. That was due also to circumstances in this matter that I'm discussing in this documentary on YouTube, which is pretty embarrassing, and not in the slightest bit amusing, and not anything that anyone self-respecting or female would ever take pleasure in having to listen to or even hear, unless it was to happen to themselves. So the thing about it is the isolation that people intentionally perpetrate in society to attain their own agendas and goals at the cost of innocent people's lives after many years of hard labour is very hard to comprehend. Like, my working experience commenced when I would say I was 16 years of age. I'm 38. I have qualifications from UL, University of Limerick. I have qualifications from Hibernia. I've studied in Germany. I've studied online in other disciplines also. And this is my experience now. My career has been ruined. My family life has been ruined. My role as a mother has been ruined. My health has been ruined. There are so many things that this town and county have perpetrated against me simply because of their issues of hatred and malice and greed. These are very difficult matters for me to be discussing, and I take no pleasure in sharing these online. But when in my circumstances there are individuals with no honourability and no credibility and no respectability to be able to have any honesty or, you know, to confront the truth of what has been occurring. Um, as I've said, I am obligated as a citizen, independent woman, qualified professional to share my experiences, not only to express the reality of the situation, but also as an obligation for other women that are experiencing similarly what is occurring at the moment for me. Um, the other issue that is absolutely horrendous is the abuse of power, as I've discussed already, um, and even more so, female professionals abusing power. Um, my body, as I've said, has gone through so much in the past 4 or 5 years. Um, I've worked very hard since, as I've said, since I was a teenager, and for me to not be able to even get the medical care I need, and to have my privacy violated so severely by people with no conscience is absolutely shameless for any government to even think of letting slide by the wayside. I've contributed very positively to my community, regardless of other people's issues and regardless of the revenge porn and sexual assaults that I experienced. I got over those experiences and moved on. I was involved in so many activities and groups and organisations in this community, selflessly working for the betterment of Tralee, County Kerry. This experience that I'm having, that people are undermining, disrespecting, isolating, abusing, wronging, and whatnot, is absolutely shameful. People with no conscience and no concept of the consequences for future generations have exploited my suffering for their gains. The privacy violations are the worst. The falsification of information, um, as I've said, the misrepresentation of me publicly, not in just the sense of defamation, but more so in the sense of, let's say, misrepresentation as being a difficult thing to explain online. But basically, for the women's groups and for the feminists and for the DCYA up in Dublin and the female politicians in the Dáil and for the women of the Farmers Association of Ireland, what would you have to say to a circumstance like this? For a woman to be married and within a 2 year space of time to be in my circumstances, um, and to have contributed to my marriage and what I thought was going to be a family life for the future. Um, as I've said, the labour I've contributed has damaged my body, and my body's ailments have not been treated, and my marriage has absolutely damaged my past, present, and future. Um, the past 4 years have been absolutely horrendous. The past 2 years have been a challenge, and the future is unknown and uncertain due to the issue of this accommodation arrangement that isn't permanent accommodation, that is not, you know. So these are my circumstances, and the government has ignored my circumstances, and I'm just wondering, is there any conscience whatsoever? I'm wondering, with all the propriety that people are espousing, is there any actual substance to that propriety, or is it just a newfound sense of propriety that people aren't used to actually what practices are involved to be able to, actually express and show and portray what propriety actually is. So, you know, this is the circumstance for a woman that's been defamed and whose privacy is being violated very severely every day. Um, the issues that I'm being confronted with are absolutely humiliating. And for a Gashka Award recipient, a Gold Award recipient from the President's Office, a Duke of Edinburgh recipient, um, a photographer award winner, a professional, um, you know, there's no shame, obviously, in this situation for the people that are intentionally perpetrating a very malicious vendetta of hate crime. Um, so I'm just wondering for the female politicians up in Dublin, what would you say to a woman in my circumstances that has been defamed, damaged, and deserted, that is unsupported, and that is being legally violated, and that is being just bandied about by a community that has decided not to like this woman? Um, who you like or who I like is none of my business or your business. Grown adults, mature adults, don't pry and spy and lie into other people's lives. But since this has been occurring for me, this is what I'm going to be sharing about. Um, Tomorrow, due to the circumstances occurring, um, I need to seek and secure alternative accommodation. I've made my application for county council housing. I'm married to a property owner. Um, After what I've experienced to be in my my position with the ailments and the harm and damage that I've been exposed to and the injuries that I've experienced is absolutely horrendous. So I'm wondering for the Farmers Association of Ireland, and I'm wondering about, you know, female politicians and women that have suffered sexual assault. What is it in this country and this county in particular that the supports and services that I require are being intentionally withheld from me? So basically, um, the issue of marriage and the role of the family, as Mr. Brendan Howlin has discussed in the past few months about, how important the role of the family is and whatnot. I'm just wondering what is the perspective of all of that by people these days, really, though. How much of a priority has the role of the family, and what are the supports and services for women in situations such as mine that are being rejected um, intentionally to make life as much of a hell as possible without any remorse. Um, the thing about this that's quite interesting is, well, it's not interesting, but I find it entertaining to an extent of how a generation or two ago there was an instance of something like this happening to an individual that I knew of or had been told of, and the experience that I'm having, as I've said, is not just intentional, it's orchestrated. Every aspect of my hierarchy of needs has been intentionally dismantled, and I'm a professional and I'm a good person. And for this to be happening, um, it beggars belief because, when I think back to the time of what occurred, when it occurred there, that resembles my experience. People had very little, and we've come a long way. And nowadays, it's as if we never had it so good. but some people didn't have it so good so long ago and so short a time ago, and we seem to forget how it was and seem to disrespect and disregard so easily. And the error in such thinking is very reckless, especially when there has been so much exploitation and so much prosperous gains from, you know, what I'm referring to. So, this is my circumstance on Sunday. I've had a sleepless night. Um, Violations are ongoing. This is a vendetta. Um, Whistleblower protection is still not forthcoming. Why that's been obstructed, I don't know. I'm fully entitled to whistleblower protection. I've complained as I'm meant to and obliged to as a citizen of the European Union to relay when there are wrongdoings and negligent incidents occurring in state service agencies. Um, I have not had the acknowledgement that I require and that I expect from those ombudsmen. The authorities and politicians are aware of the situation. This is not a mental health issue because I'm also aware of other and I'm also aware and anticipating further violations with regard to those professionals also. Because some people seem to think that this issue is easily disposed of. Some people think after the gains and exploitation that this issue is insignificant and that the capitalization of my work, light, gifts and blessings, etc., has an insignificant consequence on society. But it's not just that, it's the other issues of the agencies involved that have also wronged me. Um, you know, so this situation that has involved very serious legal violations um, and just the most dangerous defamatory claims um, have, caused a very serious situation for me. Um, this is a whistleblower issue, unfortunately, and there aren't many people who like saying that word or phrase or using that expression or being associated with such an incident. But it looks as if I'll have to keep at trying to get the protection that I require as an EU citizen because there have been such awful, horrendous wrongdoings perpetrated so far, and due to the position of having to report such wrongdoings, the prospect of retaliation um, is just, it's obvious. So, that's the matter with regard to Emer Griffin McElligott of Tralee, County Kerry this morning. Um, this is really for women. These uploads are for women in recovery, out of recovery, experiencing desertion and defamation. It's absolutely shameless that any professional would be experiencing what I'm experiencing. And I'm wondering, has Minister Howland from the Labour Party any idea how he'd address the issue of my family unit being so disastrously disrespected in Tralee County, Kerry? Um, so the matter of homelessness for a vulnerable woman, qualified teacher, defamed and victimised and violated by a community perpetrating hate crime is a matter for not only local politicians but a matter for national politicians also. Um, this community knows very well what it's gained from me. This community knows very well how it's prospered. this community knows very well what it has exploited. So this issue is very serious, and there are some things that can't be bought or sold, and there's some things that just can't be negotiated. And a woman's livelihood and future are not negotiable. And by hook or by crook, you know, there aren't any authorities or agencies that in their right mind would ever facilitate um, this kind of a situation. Um, as I've said, I'm a whistleblower, unfortunately, due to incidents since I got married that I would never have anticipated experiencing. Um, Experiences I haven't ever had prior to ever being married. As I've said, a law-abiding citizen that respected the system and respected the law. And for me to be having this kind of an ordeal to endure as a new mother and as a new wife, pretty much, is absolutely shameful. Um, there's obviously no conscience about any of this, and you know, it's very serious to have a professional that's been victimized and violated being put in such a vulnerable position that politicians are intentionally ignoring. So this morning, that's my share. Later on, I'll probably have to share again about whatever is relevant with regard to the health and healing and recovering that I have to confront also due to medical negligence. And for the politicians that are fully aware of the reality of this situation, I hope they understand the full implication of all that's happened and all that is proposed to happen. Um, because there are only so many wrongdoings that a country can just stand by and ignore, and any further intrusions from individuals negotiating without consulting are also very serious violations. So that's as much as I'll say about that this morning. To any women in my circumstances as a deserted wife, unsupported and defamed, and that has experienced domestic issues or whatever, um, I only wish you all the best, because it's a miserable circumstance for any woman to have to experience in a 21st century democracy, and it's very embarrassing for a country of this age to be in a situation that women are being like totally mistreated, neglected, etc., especially when it comes to the role of the family. So, after many years of hard labour and hard work and teaching the classroom, I'm now currently laid up resting, nursing medical ailments untreated. So, I'm just hoping that there might be some sane minded individuals with a conscience that might have some consideration for the circumstances I'm being confronted with due to hate crime.